Welcome to 20 Minute Tabletop, a podcast about board card miniature gaming. Tonight I am delighted to be rejoined by my co-host Kev. How are you doing, Kev?
I'm good, thank you. Been away for a couple of weeks, as we both have. Both done solo casts, so it's nice to be back with you tonight, Tom.
This genuinely is just us catching up, talking about our previous podcasts and also sharing a few things about the games we played whilst we were on our separate holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did the episode on vacation games, and you said that your typical move is that you take a big old suitcase of games and only ever get one of them out. And I said, I don't do that. I'm far above that. And that's exactly what I did. I took masses of games away with me, and I think I played 2 or 3 of them. So, yeah, I need to take a good, hard, long look in the mirror on that, I'm afraid.
What were your aspirational games that you took with you in your giant suitcase?
Well, to be fair, I took the old classics that I mentioned in the podcast, the various tiny epic games, and I think I was diverted by having a few new things that I'd taken with me, and they were the ones that got to the table, which was good. Buttons and Bugs, as I talked about in that podcast, that I've really got to put some time into that. I've played a couple of different characters now, Bruiser and the Cragheart. I've done one as my own character and one with my son, so that's been fun. And yeah, exactly what I'd said in that Early Impressions podcast, that there's a lot of game in the box. That holds up. I do stand by my recommendation. It's really good now, having played it quite a bit.
I too was playing a couple of games when I was camping with the family. I actually went to a local gaming store because I saw on Facebook that they had a half-price shelf. They'd overstocked on games. I remember the post said, look, even we sometimes have too many games for our collection, which made me laugh that a gaming store would do that. And I just had to go and have a look which games they'd halved the prices of. And there was a game that has been in the back of my mind since way back, good 13, 14 years, I think, called K2, which is a board game that simulates a experience of climbing the second highest mountain in the world. And I believe it was designed by Adam Kaluza. And what was amazing about this game is how similar, really, it was to games like Flamme Rouge. And I thought when Flamme Rouge came out that it was quite a unique mechanism, but this game had like a lot of similarities in terms of the way it works. You are doing hand management. You've got 18 cards for each player, and you're trying to climb up a mountain as you're going. But what's really interesting about it is there are other things you need to consider as you're going up. You can get up the mountain, but actually the higher up, the more you're affected by the weather, and you have to acclimatise your climbers, and you can die in this game. You've got 2 climbers to go, and the likelihood is that one of them will get halfway up a mountain and then actually die. And players can deliberately put climbers below you in spaces so that there's no way down. And do you know what? It's a really, really good game. I was surprised. I bought it because it was half price, and I thought, well, I've always wanted to try it and I can justify it at this price point. And what I also liked about it as well is that they've got 2 sides of the board. One that is very hard. They've got 2 sets of weather conditions. Again, one set of weather conditions that's hard, a winter version and a summer version. And they've also got a family game version within the box. So I played it a lot with my kids, and you could really modify the challenge of the game. And I did think if I got this around the table with my gaming group, we'd have a real good laugh, trying to get up this mountain and strategically blocking each other on the way down and laughing at each other as we die. And it was really, really good. I was really surprised, actually. And so I was quite glad that I brought that on the camping trip because it was a surprise hit.
So given that you did an episode on racing games, now that you've played this, would that have featured on the list? Would you categorise it as a racing game?
It's slightly different to that because in a racing game, I suppose, ostensibly you try and do the thing quicker and more efficiently than other players, whereas this one, being quick is not necessarily the way to go. Sometimes you want a few climbers to be above you, because if you're at the top and you need to get down and there's a big packed mountain, it's going to be really, really tricky. But it was really replayable, and I believe it's got a few expansions to it. So I suppose there is the cult of the newer board games, and you always presume that a newer game is going to improve. But looking at that game, I thought it was still really solid as a game, and I'm looking forward to playing it with not just the kids, but with some of my adult gaming friends.
No, it sounds good. How did it work as, the actual form factor for camping? Was it a big box? Was there lots of small components? Did it, was it an easy thing to get? Well, it won't be to the table as such, will it? To the camp mat, I guess.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough, really. The campsite I had it was called the Boat Shed. It was by a lake, and so there was a little pub that you could take board games to in the evening, which was really quite nice, to be honest. So I wouldn't suggest you'd want to be playing it outside on a camping table in the rain, which was the alternative. Which is the alternative. But yeah, it worked really, really well. I mean, it's a game, and again, I think this is the case with a lot of games, really, that they are almost like experiences, and maybe you've got 8 to 10 goes on that game, and then you probably think, well, I've had enough of that. But certainly the survival element of it made it quite tense at times. There was genuine fear when you saw bad weather conditions coming in and your climbers were quite at the top of this K2, whether that was going to be your last ever move with that climb or not. So it was really good fun.
It sounds good. And talking about the form factor of games for trips, I took all small boxes again, and a couple of books which I'll come onto, game books. And I've seen various social media posts of people playing Buttons and Bugs on aeroplane lap tables, and that is, fair play to those people. I have no idea how you do it, because I played it on a normal table in our accommodation and we were knocking the bits on the floor, but playing it on a lap table in an airplane, all the bits are just going to end up in the cargo hold, I think. So it is a travel game, but I still think you need a decent place for it. But it was a lot of fun, and like I said, really recommend Buttons and Bugs. The surprise thing that I took, which I really enjoyed, was a game book, actually a rule book called 5 Parsecs from Home, the 3rd edition solo adventure wargame in rulebook, which sounds like a bit of an odd choice. But this is something that I've had in mind for a while, and it works well as it's a book at the end of the day. I thought I'd get familiar with the rules before I start playing it. So the game itself is a miniatures wargame for one player. So it's played on either a 2-foot or 3-foot mat, but it's not like a war game in the sense of, say, Kill Team, where it's a purely competitive outcome. It's more akin to a solitaire RPG, and the way it works is you set up a crew, and think a crew of like the Red Dwarf crew from the UK comedy TV show, where there's a small group of people travelling through space, or maybe if that's a bit of a UK-centric reference, then Firefly. So a group of people on a spaceship, kind of careering around the galaxy or universe, engaging in all kinds of missions. And you start off the game by creating a crew of different individuals, and you roll up on all these D100 tables, and it's very much like creating a story. It's almost like a RPG character creation, and you go through and you equip them, and you set them up with a story and a mission and a patron who will give you quests, and then you can give them different weapons. And just as a pen and paper exercise in the airport, or first up and the kids are yet to rise, just scribbling down the start of my crew. Sounds a bit sad, but I really enjoyed it. It's only a little rule book in terms of size. It's kind of like A5 size, maybe just over 180 pages or so. And there's loads of playthroughs on YouTube. It looks fantastic.
Is that 180 pages of rules?
Well, it's probably about 40 pages of rules and about 140 pages of D100 tables. Just references you'll roll up and you'll find, I could have had a hunting rifle as opposed to a laser gun. So a lot of it is just reference materials. But that 40 pages, that possibly sounds completely mad to a board gamer. That's a serious rule book for a board gamer. But a lot of the miniatures games, that's pretty typical, and they're all near enough the same format. There'll be a few pages which explains, this is how you deal with line of sight, this is how you deal with cover, movement, this is how you resolve combat, and they're all much of a muchness. And once you've played a few miniatures games, you can pick up a rule book, leaf through it, and be into a game pretty quickly. But what is unique about this is, yes, it's a miniatures game that you'll play on your own against an AI opponent. That's just quite interesting. I haven't actually played a game of it yet. I've gone through the character creation, created my crews, and got familiar with the rules. But you'll play against different opponents who will behave in different ways. So there'll be aggressive opponents, there'll be stealthy opponents, and some of the games you will be up against a really elite squad of 5 crack soldiers, and then the next game you'll be against 50 rioters, in like a market square gone mad. So there's loads of variation in the game. But yeah, it's 180 pages sounds crazy actually when you say it out loud.
Quite.
But it's mostly it's mostly reference material. So yeah, looking forward. I hope to do an episode on that.
Well, I can tell that actually because you're smiling as you're talking to me about this. I can see you leafing through a book through the camera. And would you be kind enough to tell me about the crew that you designed, Kev? Am I on this crew?
Why not? No, well, what's interesting about it is when you design a crew, you start off with a couple of human beings, but you also roll up for different creatures, for want of a better term. So you've got to have a robot. So again, if you've ever seen Red Dwarf, I'm just imagining the Red Dwarf crew, where it was a comedy show in the UK in the 90s, and there's a robot called H. Crichton was the robot, wasn't he? Yeah, and there's a hologram. But just in creating your crew, it's very thematic. I'm almost attached to some of the characters, that I've rolled up, which is great fun. So in addition to humans and robots, there's primary aliens. So there's engineers, Kerin, Solus, and precursors, all of which have different traits and different reasons for being in the game. And also, brilliantly, something called strange characters. So all kinds of weird and wonderful cyborgs and different upgraded.
What I'm interested in, Kev, if you don't mind me interrupting, I presume you've given them some names.
I don't have my characters list to me, and I was a little bit boring, and I just used a online name generator. There's these fancy name generators. I can't actually recall any of them to hand, but I will give you an update when I come to do the episode, and I feel a bit of pressure now. I'm going to have to maybe call one of them Tom, I think. You could be the robot. Yeah, well, Tom the robot.
Quite like that. It is funny, though, because I've been watching Quinn's Quest, Quinton Smith from Shut Up and Sit Down, and
yes, I've seen a few of those.
And I really enjoy his content, and I also really enjoy his new channel. But every time I get to the point where he starts leafing through this, there's absolutely no chance. One of these RPG style games with 180, 300 pages, I just would have to abandon every other hobby in my life, is how I feel when I see that kind of thing. So when you're sitting there casually saying, oh, it was a small holiday, I was only away for a week, I bought a 180-page rule book, I was thinking, that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
No, in the Venn diagram of gamers and miniatures gamers, I suppose that is something different, because in a board game, you're looking for quite an efficient packing of the rules. I think we both said the Jaws of the Lion rulebook was really good because it was so streamlined and gave really clear examples. Whereas in a miniatures game, I think you're looking for the lore and the story to come through a lot more. Because I was talking to a guy at my gaming club the other night, and he said if you were looking for a game at which you can just exercise mastery, then you just play chess, because that gives you infinite possibility to devote your life to becoming the best player in the world. So if you're not playing that, then the game that they're playing, it's got to have a little bit more about it. It's got to have a story. It's got to have the fluff, as they call it. 180 pages does not seem mad to me. I know you say it out loud to a board gamer and you think actually that maybe is a bit crazy, but it's totally standard for these types of games. And yeah, I think it's an important part of it. Like having a universe you can immerse yourself into, it stops it from just being pushing pieces of plastic around in order to maybe gain a slightly higher probability of scoring a hit, to a cinematic moment where someone's sneaking around the corner, spotting the prey and hitting them with a sniper rifle or something. These stories unload and unravel on the board if you both have a common understanding of the story behind the game.
Yeah, for sure. I think the lore and the theme are massively important. I would accept that. I just wonder if you could condense it into slightly less than 180 pages. The thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, I know you heard the podcast about social deduction games whilst you were abroad. You hadn't heard it before, so we've not had a chance to talk about it. Is that something you enjoy playing? Because obviously I had Matt on for that episode, and I brought him on as somebody that has quite a different position to the one I do about social deduction games, because obviously I love them. What's your take? You a fan?
I've played a few. I think I probably share Matt's sentiments a little bit more. I think there can be a lot of pressure in the group, because generally I think these kind of games shine with a larger player count. And of course, the more players you've got, the greater the element of chaos. Because let's be honest, someone runs it, even though it's like a community undertaking to play one of these games. There's generally a couple of big characters who will make it fly. And I think it relies on having the right mix of people. And I haven't played enough of them to really experience that. I've played some that have gone well, and some that have just been a bit awkward, particularly ones where I think I played just Werewolf with some non-gamers who just didn't really get it. So that was a shame. But I have played Coup, if that's counted as a social deduction game. I did enjoy that.
It's certainly got a social deduction element, hasn't it? Because you are trying to work... It's a bluffing game, isn't it? And I don't know if the crossover between bluffing and social deduction and where that is, because obviously bluffing is part of social deduction. And I think Coup's got the bluffing in. But is it social deduction? I'm not sure if that's a firm crossover. It's got aspects of it, I suppose.
Well, that is one that I did enjoy. So if that's not social deduction, then I guess not. But yeah, Werewolf not so much. Coup, yes. So who knows? Jury's out. I think I'll have to play one next time I come down to the deep south to visit you.
Yeah, and finally, because we are about 20 minutes, we have just, obviously our last episode was on the Expo. Are you committed, Kevin, to go into that Expo with me next year?
As committed as a 40-year-old man who's not entirely in control of his calendar can be, yes, I am committed. The struggle is real, Tom, and I know you share my calendar difficulties.
You've been to some form of Expo before, have you?
Yeah, I went to Tabletop Live in Manchester. So there's a gaming media empire called Tabletop Gaming, and I think it has Miniature Wargames. They're the two sister publications. And they have an expo, and it was at a mill near Old Trafford a couple of years ago. So it was pretty small, way smaller than UK Games Expo. And I went on my own, and I remember going around. I enjoyed it. I was thinking, I wish I was here with someone, because there was opportunities to jump in and do demo games of things. And I think it'd be a much better experience with a friend. But that said, I had a great look around. I got to feel the general sort of vibe of the place. It was enjoyable in that you got to speak to all the different game designers. Quite often, you see a beautifully produced game on a shelf, and yes, there are the behemoths of Asmodee and
Czech Games Editions,
University Games, all these huge publishers, and you forget that some of these beautifully produced games is just one bloke and his wife who has stood essentially a market stall, and it's their creation that they've had published. So it was really cool to get to talk to some of the publishers. So that was good. And of course, I succumbed to the spending money aspect of it. And that's how I bought into Carnivale, the alternative Renaissance miniatures game. I played a demo game with two of the most enthusiastic guys you'll ever meet, and I was just completely sold. And I bought a starter box there and then. And I played that a bit, to be fair. So, yeah, I think if we do go, perhaps it's going to be casino rules, and we'll have to leave the wallets locked up in the hotel room.
Yeah, that's unlikely, though. I'll be straight in the bring and buy bit, I think. That's where I'll be. You'll have to drag me out of there, kicking and screaming, to the main bit of the expo.
Yeah, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to be too critical, because in a few weeks is a phenomenon known as war boot, like car boot. So, I suppose car boot's another UK-centric term. But if you're an international listener, you've probably heard of a yard sale. Exactly the same kind of thing. So my local gaming club has a war boot, and people bring all the miniatures and armies and various rule sets that they've never really touched, or they just want to move on, and it's a big bring and buy. So I'm going to be visiting that. So I am passing no judgment on your board gaming habit until I've successfully come out of that unscathed.
Yeah, and obviously you're just going there as a window shopper. I can imagine you'll bring nothing home, Kev. Absolutely nothing.
No, high discipline is going to be in play. I'm going, so that's half the battle lost already, isn't it? Maybe I shouldn't go. That would be a better approach, perhaps. But that is in the calendar.
Okay, so we are probably going to have to round up here. It's been lovely catching up, and apologies to the listeners who were maybe expecting something slightly more structured. We will come back to slightly more structured podcasts in the future, but it just seemed remiss to not have a little chat and catch up, seeing as we haven't spoken to each other for a couple of weeks. Anyway, I hope that was listenable for you, and if not, then, well, I can only apologise, and it's over now. You can't undo it. You've had a listen. It's happened. Just get on with life. But no, seriously, if that wasn't listenable, I do apologise, and we will come back with slightly better content, hopefully for you, in the next couple of weeks.
And thanks for listening.